My name's Anita, and in 2007 I had cauda-equina syndrome, which completely changed my life. I lost my jobs, my passion and my career. Initially it was very difficult, but actually 13 years on, I still enjoy life to the full. Life's good.
Hi Anita, how great to see you again.
Hi Sue, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. I wonder if a good place to start is if you tell me about you. What is it that makes you you?
I love my family, so I have 4 sons and I love spending time with them, and now I'm a nana, so grandchildren. I really enjoy travelling. I enjoy being with children, so I'm a Beaver Scout leader. I enjoy my home and being with my husband and making and baking and having close time.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say that you're quite a girly girl, is that right?
Yes, I am a girly girl. I love having my nails done. I do like a good spa. I love to have a facial and things like that. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what do you think have been the challenges to you in terms of kind of self-image or body image since your injury? Have things changed quite a lot?
Yes, I gained weight through lack of mobility, and then equally you don't feel quite as girly when you've got incontinence issues and numbness. That's not very sexy, not very girly.
And the continence issues, are those something that remain unmanaged, or is that something you've got a really good grip on now?
They're managed 99% of the time. There's still times when life reminds you of your injury, but they are managed much better than they were initially.
Yeah, I read something yesterday actually that said, you know, pre-injury you should never take your continence and your sex life for granted, and I'm sure that's something you would agree with.
Definitely, definitely.
So in terms of getting over those challenges, what are the things that you've done and that have been really successful?
I guess it's reconnecting. After the initial injury, you sort of have time where you physically can't do the things you previously did. And it's working through your own self to work out that you are still you and that you still have a purpose, and becoming that team again, because you do feel quite separate and you've not had a physical contact for so long that you have to restart it really in a different playing field, but you do reconnect.
So you're talking specifically about your relationship with your husband at this point, or with the whole family?
With the whole family. I think with work as well, you sort of reinvent yourself. So what the things I focus on are what I can do rather than what I can't do or I find more difficult.
And how does that work out at Beavers? That must be a bit mad.
So I go in my wheelchair because I fall down if I don't, and they accept that that's how I am, and I don't do it on my own anymore, but I'm just me. I'm still just me.
Of course you are. So I'm really interested in this reconnecting with people, and particularly reconnecting with your family. So how did you go about it?
It was quite hard I had 4 boys that were very, children really, and to keep going to their activities, so to go watch their football or to go to watch a proper football match, it wasn't really set up for me. And just to get travelling again with the boys was quite difficult, so it took time to get them. My youngest, I used to get into bed on a morning and sort of talk to him and cuddle him and read to him, so they came to me rather than me going to them. And just to open up about what had happened, because they all thought it was their fault, that's what children do, isn't it? They think it's their fault.
Yeah. So how old were the children when you were first injured? Because you had 2 episodes, didn't you, of cauda-equina?
Yeah. So Jamie was 4, my youngest, and my eldest was 16, just doing his exams. And the eldest was fine, but the one below him, Ollie, wasn't. He ended up thinking it was his fault because it had happened while we'd been out for a meal with him. And it wasn't his fault at all. It's just what happened, it's just life. So he took it quite hard, and I think he was just the wrong age, where it was easier with the younger ones.
Did he have any additional support?
He did. He ended up under children's services for some activities to help him think out of his own head, basically.
Yeah, think out of his box. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay, so tell me a bit more about the football. What were the barriers to going to football?
Physically, it was difficult because obviously you normally walk to football, and then football's on a field, and they're never near where you want to go. So even though Mike would push my wheelchair and we'd get stuck in the mud and he'd drag my wheelchair, it was then when you got there, the toilet facilities were either zero or not great. And I knew that if I needed a wee, you don't get any notice, or if you'd been out travelling for a while, you would need to empty my bladder, that it wasn't ever going to be clean. It certainly might not be physically possible to get in and accessible. And then sometimes they just didn't exist. You know, they'd go for a team wee and I'd be sort of left, right, okay, I can't go.
Yeah.
It's not set up for any disability.
Yeah.
So that was a barrier. So I stayed at home a lot of the games. I missed years of not going to watch them.
Yeah. And this was your boys playing football, not just going to watch the local team or anything?
Yeah, it was the boys playing, and 3 out of the 4 played football. So normally we'd travel separately and go to different ones and then meet up for the last one together. It just stopped, which for me...
Yeah, so that was really largely because of the toilet facilities, the kind of getting you to the field was possible. Perhaps not terribly dignified, but it was possible.
Yeah.
But going for a wee was the thing that stopped.
Yeah. And that's crazy.
Yeah, and really interferes with your role as mum as well, because I'm sure you really enjoyed supporting your kids.
You do, and you sort of... You watch out for everybody and for them as well, you know, if they're getting hurt or if they're playing, it's nice to see them play really well, even if they don't win, to play well and be able to say, you did that really well, you know, but you just couldn't do it.
So was that something that you found a solution to?
It was. So there was a product brought out where you had a catheter with a bag on, fixed, because I tried one where you put a bag on and the bag used to drop off and you'd end up with wee all over the car or your legs or both. So I could basically stay in the car or come back to the car at half time and put a coat over my lap, have a wee in the car, wee wherever I wanted with my catheters and the bag, pop it into a nappy sack, good to go back and watch the rest of the football. So that was quite enabling, really, to be able to do that again. It was a difficult thing initially. It was like, can anybody see? And then you just realise, actually, I've got a coat over my lap. Nobody knows what you're doing.
Yeah. So it was a question of being a bit creative, but also having the product that could meet your needs.
Definitely. And initially I didn't know there were products like that out there, because it's not something that's advertised on TV. You don't know that they exist. So I had a choice of 2 catheters when I was discharged, a long one or a short one. And it wasn't really until my second injury where I sort of discovered there was more than one type of catheter and you could have them all on prescription if that's what you needed. And that's what I have now. I just think my handbag's a bit like I have every eventuality covered, basically.
Okay. So what would your advice be for other people in a similar situation, you know, where their activities are halted because of lack of information?
Look at products, look at getting testers. So most companies will send you out half a dozen of a product to try them all and give them a good, and see which is the best for you. And it might be not the best for me, it might be their best, and it might be it suits their lifestyle, what they're doing. Some of them are smaller than others packaging wise, and some are quite bulky, but some are easier because they're bulkier. You've just got to try and keep trying.
And what about reconnecting with your husband? Because that must have been quite a challenge.
It was. We both initially got sent of a leaflet to read, which we both looked at each other, read it, and thought, well, we knew that anyway. And went back to, I guess, a bit more, because I was sore, Mike was aware of hurting me. And we went back to more sort of touching than anything, really, just the kissing and the cuddling and the physical touching of each other. And him finding out what I couldn't feel was probably like, wow, you're like a map. You've got bits that, you can't feel. But it was also a nice time to reconnect mentally. And I used to say to him, no matter what, just kiss me properly, just kiss me passionately, and then I'll feel it, even if I can't feel it, even if it's numb, I'll feel your passion, I feel like. So we do kiss more now than we did when you've been married maybe 20 years. because it's more important now.
Mm-hmm.
And it is just, that's trial and error as well. Don't ever give up.
And so when you were doing, like, you mentioned a really great word, mapping. Did he kind of go through a process of mapping your body?
Yeah, he did. And it was different sort of to a normal relationship, I guess, because he was fascinated that I couldn't feel some parts of my foot even, but one foot was fine. And equally with my bits, some bits worked and some didn't. But even as you're recovering, there were different sensations. So sometimes touch was painful in some places, and other times it was totally numb. Sometimes it was tickly, which even when he wasn't tickling. So just basically, it is like rediscovering each other in a better way. You sort of do discover each other again, which was nice. We found initially when the children, it was easier to go away, which sounds awful, doesn't it? But it was easier to go away because then we were just Mike and Anita. So we weren't mum, dad and everything else. And we still do that more often to sort of escape the family. But it is important. The touch was really important.
Yeah, and communicating as well, I should imagine.
Yeah, definitely. What feels good now? What can you feel? And also, because I couldn't feel, I used to say, tell me what you're doing, tell me where you are, so that I know. So in my head, I could think, I know what he's doing now. So in my head, it became a picture of what was happening.
Yeah, you could visualise it.
Yeah, and that helped massively to hear him say what he was doing, because then I knew.
Yeah, and I think your experiences were quite different because of your 2 bouts of cord requiner. I think your sexual experiences post trauma were quite different, is that right?
I guess so. The first time, I think physically it was a massive change from what you expected. And the second time it was more, here we go again. But I sort of knew that if you keep trying, you might get something back or you won't, but it's not a failure. It's just how it is. So I guess, second time was easier. Harder initially because oh my goodness, I've got to, climb that mountain again. But then at least I knew what worked the first time to sort of say, look, let me heal physically and then we'll start the ball rolling again.
Yeah. And what about fulfillment or orgasm, I guess?
But initially, with the first time, I had nothing for about, I'm going to say 4 years. And then one day I was like, hello, I can feel something. And that was quite a surprise because, like, they say 2 years for recovery, but it was definitely about 3-4 years in. And then you're desperate to make sure it happens again, and it doesn't always work that way. But that was a good thing to hold on to know that you could make it happen again. It might not be as it was pre-injury. And I now talk to Mike about them being head orgasms because lots of the time it's when my mind's in the right place that it's easier to get to that point.
Yeah. And what about needing to persevere, maybe to play for longer before you get to that point?
Very much so. It is about a build-up. So when we go away, the first thing we notice is Michael helped me have a shower or a bath, and it's more about touching each other in, I guess, not so sexual, but just to touch each other and to care for each other before you put a fluffy towel on and fluffy robe and lie on a bed. It's the build-up takes longer, definitely. And then usually it's a massage with some nice oils, and that's, once again, that's him doing something for me that might not be sexual, but it is sexual in a way. And then, me saying, right, it's my turn, what can I do now? And it definitely, it is worth persevering. It does, everything takes longer. Life is slower.
Yeah.
And Mike always sort of says to me, well, people only really notice your smile on your face. He said, when I'm with you, I don't notice your body. I just see your beautiful personality and you being you. And that's important to remember, that what people do see is what we see now, really. But it is more about self-love before others can love you, and hearing that, you still have lovely hair or you still have lovely skin or things like that help. but it comes from other people initially. I think you lose your self-confidence, and it is people saying, but you're still you, you're still beautiful. And it is that reinventing yourself to be like you were before, but improved. So I've gained more confidence in the long run because I've had to overcome obstacles. So it's sort of, you overcome it and you think, yeah, I can do that. So I have gained more inner confidence, which I didn't know I had.
Yeah, do you think that you were always quite a determined person?
Very much so. I'm very positive, and I'm a problem solver. That's my sort of survival thing is, right, how can I do this? And thinking outside of the box sometimes is the way forward. So if you can't do it in that position, then how can we change it to make it easier? Or if you can't do it face to face, how can we do it to make it better? And it is just being that, not giving up, that determined to not give up.
Yeah, to find a solution.
Yeah.
So what about, you're kind of touching on sexual positions there.
Yeah. So especially when you've just had spinal surgery, you are very much not able to bear weight as much as you used to. It's very painful. And even now, even things like keeping your legs up doesn't happen. So you just have to play around a little bit and get to a position that it's comfortable. Sometimes pillows are your best friend.
Okay, and do you have to ask your husband sometime to move you into a particular position or to
hold?
Take your leg?
Yeah, take a leg, love. Yeah, you do. It's a partnership thing, isn't it? It's like, if you want to go there, you're just going to have to make that happen. So it is, again, creative thinking.
Is that quite difficult to ask for something that normally you would just do by magic?
Initially, but now I guess it's 13 years down the line, Mike sort of knows that my leg won't go there or won't stay there, and he's very much sort of, shall we do this? And I'm like, well, you'll have to take that leg, or you'll have to help me. And he just says, make sure you're comfortable first. You're just aware of it together, because you don't want to stop halfway, do you? You want to be able to, you don't hurt the person you love neither.
No, of course. But that was kind of where I was going with it, the idea that sometimes it's not physical hurt, but you don't want to offend either.
No, absolutely not. No, it's team play.
Excellent. So what was important to you about maintaining your sex life, keeping sex in your relationship?
I think it's an important part of marriage, and for your marriage and partnership to work, it's just a part of everyday life, but it means that you can be intimate with your team player, really. And if you don't keep it going, I think I'd be worried that he didn't love me anymore and he might go somewhere else, I guess, in the back of my head. And we did make that deal that we would kiss each other every day properly. Yeah. Just even if we weren't up to anything else, at least that was the, I love you. And Mike's very good at saying, I love you, I love you. I'm probably not as good at saying it. I go, but I do other things to show.
Yeah, that demonstrate that.
Yeah.
And what about the idea of kind of giving pleasure as well as taking pleasure?
Very much so. I think that was probably easier than taking it. That for me, that was easier physically to do. And it is a two-way thing, isn't it? And it's just waiting until you're both in the right mood and then going for it, really. Same as if you were not injured.
Yeah, and lots of communication, I think, before you make any assumptions, to communicate and understand what's on the agenda and what's not on the agenda today.
Yeah, and Mike, at the end of the day, he has to, or when I was doubly incontinent, he had to change the bedding, sort me out, help me shower. So he was very caring in that. Then it sort of led up to me being initially a bit ashamed, and then, well, if he loves me enough to do that, then I love him enough as well to do more with him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand. So how much did your incontinence or your uncertainty about your bladder and bowel feature in your sex life early on? Was that something that kind of inhibited things?
Very much so initially, especially when I didn't have a bowel regime. That was worse than having a wee. At least you could put a towel on the bed. But I've got a system now which works. And that's important to get, a program that works and manages it. And even the boys know that I sort my tummy out, and that's all they know, but they know I sort my tummy out. And they know I have catheters. They're very good at saying, do you need a stick? Meaning a catheter. Do you need a stick from the garage? And it's about being honest, isn't it? It's, if you take away the mystery and you make it every day, then it becomes every day, and then you're not ashamed. And that was a big thing to realise, being incontinent. I shouldn't be ashamed. I didn't ask for it and I can't control it.
No, you're absolutely right.
Initially, when I was first home, we lived in a house and it was very difficult to mobilise to places and to be more independent. And now my life's slower but better because I notice things, and it's also more accessible because I've made it more accessible, and I plan my life more. So I plan my good days and then allow days of rest, where before it was like, right, work, 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 play, play, work, work, and no rest for me, where now my life balance is better. It has to be.
I'm super grateful for our chat today, Anita, and I'm really, really impressed at how open you can be about your sex life, and I'm sure it's going to be massively valuable to other people to hear your learning process, really, about how to communicate, how to negotiate before you have sex, and the voyage of discovery you've been on, really. So thanks ever so much for that. And I'm just wondering if you've got any final top tips or magic pieces of advice that you think might really transform somebody who's newly injured and starting off on the journey you've been on.
I think initially it's getting that your bladder and bowel sorted. They need to be a little bit of a regime and have the right products. And then it's time, making sure you have the time so that you can communicate and you can prepare for your adventure in the bedroom. And communicating is obviously always important, but to make sure you're on the same page, that they understand what you can and can't do, and to lube, not give up and have lube.
You've got to love your lube.
You got.
Excellent. Thanks ever so much.